We had a celebration here recently, and some of our friends gave us this very beautiful book for our library. The cover has a traditional painting of the goddess Lakshmi, the Indian goddess Lakshmi, but the book itself is actually anything but traditional. It's a presentation of contemporary and modern art forms in India. But it links the presentation with the economic progress of India. India has gone through an economic boom and is, of course, changing the lifestyle, the cultural patterns, etc. of the people, and these are expressed in art. It's a reminder for us in our journey through space-time that politics and economics and all the things of everyday life are part of the journey, and how the environment around us is changing the whole time. But in actual fact, it's not the art forms in the book or even the front cover, but simply the title that was chosen. The word Chalo. It really means, come on, get going. It's used in everyday speech. If the children are hanging around and you're restless to get out, you say, come on, chalo, chalo, let's get going. Or even if you've had a very successful high-level business meeting and the project is now in place and everybody's pleased with the contracts, you might hear the word, okay, now, chalo, let's get on with it. And so we've chosen that word as a sort of symbolic word for this new series of YouTube reflections. Chalo, come on, let's get going. We're all very aware of the difficult situation of our times. The violence, the terrorism, the enormous input from science, all branches of science, of information and new technology, overwhelming most of us. And yet, although we realize how dangerous the times are that we live in, and how we seem to be heading almost to total destruction of life on this planet, our own human life included, we also know and we see people saying and acting on, come on, we can change it, we can live differently, let's get going. So, where are we going? Hopefully to a place where there is more respect, more peace, more joy in this enormous gift of life we've been given. But we need to have a sense of urgency that that hope has to be realized. So, chalo. The series of YouTubes now, these reflections together, is for any one of us who has some sense of urgency and also some sense of the innermost journey, the journey of spirit, of the ultimate reality through space-time. So let's begin. Where to? When we set out on a journey, we usually expect to know where we're going. We spend a lot of time planning how to get there, the most effective way, the quickest way, or perhaps through the most scenic route. But we expect to arrive somewhere where we have planned to be. This is Western culture, of course. And if those of you who are watching this and sharing in this reflection come from a Western culture, it's good for us to wake up to the fact of how limiting this can be. We're not attracted by going round in circles. So if I told you that the goal of the spiritual path would be to come back where we started from, you would find that very difficult to accept. I'm thinking of a friend in Australia who described something that many of us may have experienced. Once she was with a group of friends, a youth club, taking a trek in the outback. And the young man who was the leader was full of popularity and confidence, and off they set. After some time, one of the group said, "Hey, haven't we been here before?" And they all looked round and said, "Good gracious, yes, we have." Well, some laughed and others got angry, but they set out again. The leader apologized and took a slightly different path, and off they went. And again, after a while, there was a rustle among the group, and they said, "Look, we've come back again." Now this time, more people were angry, and everybody decided they could make their own way forward to the place they were going to on their own. Only one person, the friend who was telling the story, stayed behind to encourage and sympathize with the leader. And of course, a year later, she was engaged to marry him. But our annoyance, our anger, our frustration, discovering that we thought we were going a straight line to somewhere, that we've actually gone round in circles and come back to where we started from, is typical of Western cultures, linear cultures. Our expectations are linear. But not every culture on this planet is a linear culture. There are others that are cyclic. And it's good to remember. Now, cyclic is not the same thing as circular. We don't like going round and coming back exactly to where we started from. But the cyclic cultures don't do that. They move and they come back to that place just slightly different. And they move again and come back, but it is slightly different. It's easier perhaps to have an example from classical Indian music, for example, where the melody contains a few notes. They're played by the instruments. Then they're repeated, but the next time one note is sharp. Then it's repeated. The next time that note goes back to neutral, but another note changes to flat. And so on, and the development is like that, seeming to come back to where it started from, but no, always moving. It's the same in literature. I know many people who have been confused picking up, say, the Upanishads and not realizing that they are in a cyclic culture, wonder why first verse starts, as this one does, talking about the restless swan. And then the next verse talks about something else. So we have a red theme and an orange theme. Then comes in a blue theme. Then comes in a green theme. And then suddenly we're back to a red theme. But this time it's followed by blue and not by green. If we just read that page through with a linear conditioned mind, we would wonder what it's all about. They would think it was very confused writing. It's not. If you get into the cyclic rhythm, you understand it. Now, why is that important to us in the West? To wake up to this cyclic rhythm is because it is closer, as a description, to how we make the innermost journey, the spiritual journey. We seem to be constantly coming back to where we started from, but it looks different. We see what is familiar already But we see it differently. We see it with new eyes, with a different level of perception, a broader level of perception, a deeper level of understanding. It's why the scriptures tell us we have to go to deeper, deeper centers of reality. You know, it's a help to realize that this is true of our normal senses. For example, sight. We know that at any given moment, we do not actually see, we do not actually record in our minds every single thing that at that moment our eyes would be capable of seeing. It's called, intentional blindness. We could see it, but we don't see it. You know? We programmed it out. We focused only on a certain section of what we could see. There have been endless experiments over time with this. One of the most interesting recent ones was where doctors were given X-rays to examine. These were doctors who were specialists in cancer research and surgery, and they were examining these X-rays looking for different variations of the form of cancer. But in the X-ray, from time to time, appeared the face of a gorilla. The interesting thing was, with the hundreds of doctors who looked at those X-rays intensely, 83% never saw the gorilla. So what else, perhaps of medical importance, had they failed to record when looking at those X-rays? And so this is an everyday event for us. We have to keep on coming back and looking again, widening the horizon, deepening the intensity of our focus and therefore of our understanding. It's the same with hearing. We all know that we can have selective hearing. It's amazing the person who has perfect hearing, and yet when we ask them to do something across the room, they suddenly, what did you say? They suddenly do not hear it. You know, we're all aware of this game we play. But having to listen, to look again, more freely of our expectations, our linear expectations, realizing that we will move into the familiar, but see it differently, see more important details, is true. And this is a good image for our spiritual journey. Psychophysical insights, you know, where we are looking at something, or a scientist is working out a problem and he can't get the answer. Suddenly, eureka! He's got it, you know. And we know the thrill, the excitement of suddenly understanding something or seeing something that we had not seen or been able to understand before. With the spiritual moments, it's slightly different. They're usually moments of deep calm, where, yes, the familiar changes. The insight is deeper, it's more expansive, but it comes with a calmness and a security that nothing else can give us. But it does give even more energy to our actions and to our changing, our attitudes, our judgments, than we could get any other way. Moments of deep insight and calm on the spiritual journey, where the cyclic movement takes us to another level, either higher or deeper. These are only images. So we have plenty now to reflect on about the cyclic journey and how true is that statement of the poet. And the end of all our journeying shall be to come back to the place we started from, but to see that place as though for the very first time. I hope you're getting more at home with your spiritual journey, your innermost journey. Now there's something else before we go that's important. We're all used now to pizzas to go or coffee to go, in the rush and hurry of our everyday lives, it's quite often important just to grab a piece of pizza or a roll or a cup of coffee to eat, to nourish us on the inward journey. So we're familiar with coffee to go. Now in this series we will always have questions to go. To take us forward, to nourish us on the inward journey. I mean, it's no use having coffee to go if you don't drink it. And it's no use having questions to go unless you ask yourself and go over and over the possible answers. So what are the questions to go this time? Very easy this time. First of all, ask yourself, when did I ever begin to get interested in spiritual reality, on an innermost journey? Did it come out of being introduced to religious tradition, religious teaching? Was it some great event in life, like the death of somebody I loved dearly? Or suffering some injury and pain myself? A moment of fear? How did it all begin? How did I start? First question to go. Second question to go. Can you remember any moment when you went, Eureka! I got it. Now I understand it. It only took me 30 years, but now I know what it was all about. It might not have taken 30 years, but you know the experience. Suddenly, you see what was there, but what you could not see before, or hear, or understand. And then see, has that happened on my spiritual journey, on the innermost quest? Have a look at those moments of deep calm and ask yourself, did you really understand that this was a turning point? This was a moment of moving forward, perhaps in seemingly the same direction, but in actual fact, at a very different level of awareness or consciousness. So, 3 questions to go this time. All of them will nourish us, encourage us, develop our experience, change our attitude. And so, chalo, let's get going.